Hello, everybody. Thanks for clicking on another video. This is interview 25, I think it is. Yeah, 25. And I have TC on the line. TC is in California. He sent me a letter, an email with an attachment kind of describing a few of his encounters, and they seem fascinating. And I've been anxious to get him on the phone to get this recording, and as usual, we go back and forth for days and sometimes weeks with some of these people, and it's just hard to connect on a schedule. But I finally got him, and I'm an hour late. I actually almost stood him up, and he called me, and he goes, "Hey, you're supposed to call me an hour ago." And he's in California. I'm in Mississippi, so I had the time mixed up. TC, how's everything in California, man?
Oh, it's great. I have to look outside my window, though, because of the pandemic. I just observe from inside,
Are you in a larger metropolitan area, or are you in a rural area?
About 30 minutes north of Los Angeles. It's a lot more calm and peaceful and a little cooler.
Yeah. My son spent 6 years stationed at 29 Palms. I think that's south of LA, right?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Palm Springs and
oh yeah,
area.
that's like southeast, I think, or northeast of LA.
I love that area. We got to go out there and visit him a few times. That desert is so strange to me. I had never seen the desert until he joined the Marine Corps, and we went out to visit him. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. We went through Needles, California. That's a little bitty, like, it's a one-store stop in the desert, and it's just like in the movies. It's like, I thought I was going to hear the like the Clint Eastwood theme song or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So the pandemic's really got you guys hunkered down inside, right?
Well, it does me. There are some people who feel differently, but I take the words of the doctors and the families who are involved. And they say, take this seriously, and so I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There's been a lot of debate over this, and I just think I have an uncle who lives in Tennessee, and he's very cautious. He's pushing 70. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm going to die someday soon. I realize that, but I'm going to try not to die from the COVID-19. And I said, I don't blame you. My mother, she's very cautious. She just turned 79 the other day. I'm not that, but anyway, the point is that what anybody wants to do with their health and their exposure to this is up to them. If they want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If they don't, that's up to you, So, but I appreciate that you're being careful. Now, you've got some Bigfoot experiences. Is that right?
Oh, man. It's like fate. I don't know. He follows me around.
Wow.
I mean, it's like when you read a book and it may be about flying saucers, and you turn off the light, you get under the covers at night. There's an ET in your closet. I mean, you get spooky. You get that spooky feeling,
Sure.
With Bigfoot, in my life, I read about him, I believe, because all the very, very dignified, people who are respected, telling me they saw it. I believe it. To me, that's evidence. That's good enough for me. I feel like even though I know you can imagine a lot of things, it happens with Bigfoot and me. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting already into my story, but anyways.
Well, that's
you're
fine.
Ready, I'll begin.
Yeah, I had. Are you familiar with Todd Standing?
No, not really.
He's a big time researcher up in British Columbia, and I got to meet him. And he came down to North Alabama a few weeks ago. I actually interviewed him 6 or 8 months ago. We finally got to talk about the interview, and I said, were you okay with that interview? He goes, yes. But you know what I hate, and everybody that's interviewed a lot hates? I'm like, what? And he goes, when you say start at the beginning, how did you get into this? He goes, we hate that. Don't ask us that. And I'm like, oh, well, I kind of want to know that, So I'm going to ask you, At what point in your life did this become a thing in your life? Can you start there or start anywhere you'd like? But that would be interesting for the audience, I think.
Well, like when I go to the doctor, I make a list so I don't forget anything. So I made a list and put it in chronological order of my association, whether I even knew about it at the time or not. I wrote it down. And I was about 7 years old. And should I just go ahead and begin? I feel kind of like that. Remember that TV show, The Wild Adventures, Omaha's Adventures, knee-knocking experiences, in the forest?
Yeah.
But, I never got scared. When I was a kid and I heard this story I'm about to tell you, it was like, you think, wow, it's like believing there's a cyclops, a giant, I saw a movie when I was a kid, the giant cyclops that scared me to death. Anyway, I was in the living room, our whole family, we'd get together about every weekend, very close family. We'd have barbecues, make ice cream, all that stuff. We're sitting in the living room and my uncle says to my dad, remember that time we were camping out in a cave? We had the fire and that 10-foot man walked in. And then we all shot him with our rifles, and he walked out like nothing was wrong, real slow. He wasn't even scared.
What?
Yeah. I heard that when I was 7 years old. This was in southwest Missouri near Joplin. So there must be a forest around there somewhere.
Okay.
And I know there's Mark Twain forests around in there. They told me this, and my uncle was dead serious. My dad, he just tossed it off. He said, even though my dad was one of those people shooting his rifles, they must have had a very tall opening in the cave because they had a fire in there, and they saw the glowing eyes and everything. A 10-foot man, they said. He said 10 foot. I think all my life I remembered that story. It's like, wow, how could that possibly be? And my dad said, no, it was an owl. And then my uncle, no, it wasn't. He was real serious. So that I knew there was something up, and I just remembered that in the back of my mind. Of course, all my life it was like a family, a tale that you never forget.
That was an experience your father and your uncle had, and that got you interested in it, right?
Yeah, there were two uncles and my dad.
Okay.
They were all around that campfire, and he comes walking in, and they started shooting at him, and he walked out like he didn't even, like it was casual.
I'm not going to interrupt you anymore. I just, the floor is yours. Yeah. You take it from there, and I usually do a little talking on the front end, but then I usually shut up. So just roll with it, man. Tell us your whole story.
Well, you are a good interviewer. I always noticed that about Jay Leno. He always interrupted when it got good. You're a great interviewer. Okay, now fast forward a little bit. That was when I was 7 years old. I am 67 years old right now. So back in 1965, I went on a trip, YMCA, for 2 weeks in the San Bernardino National Forest. This is experience number 2. And it was just like he follows me around. I mean, we're doing all the YMCA camp things, learning how to braid and do things, whatever, And then we camp out at night. We get into our tents, just hundreds of us, it seemed like, the whole valley full of kids. Right in the middle of the night, like really in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 in the morning, there was all kinds of noise on the table outside, like the rattling, and someone wasn't even trying to be quiet, rattling and banging and tearing through things. Somebody's going to get in trouble for this, waking everybody up. And I never heard anything about anybody getting in any trouble. But the next morning, when I got out of that tent, I remember very well, and I didn't put any of this together at the time. But when I got older, like in the last few years, thinking about, you remember that? There was a footprint, the classic Bigfoot footprint, the first one I've ever seen in my life. Never saw a photograph when I was that age. But I guess I was 12 years old then. And there was a Bigfoot print right beside my tent. And I thought, oh, yeah, right. It's obviously a prank. So you have the rattling, the middle of the night. You have the Bigfoot print, just one. There weren't two, just one. I don't know if the soil was wet there or something. And then in the middle of the day, sometime in those 2 weeks, I was throwing these little tiny rocks that couldn't hurt you. We were having a little rock fight with these little baby rocks. And I was standing there next to the forest. It's San Bernardino Forest right there. It's a real big wild place there. Right out of the trees comes a rock a whole lot bigger than our hands and lands at my feet. And I turn around, I look up in the trees. We weren't up in those trees. So that's that experience. I put that together, and it's in my little memory, That was pretty cool. Then you fast forward a little bit more to 1969 when I remember my friend got a camper, VW camper van, and his parents were spoiling him crazy, and brand new. And we decided to go to a trip from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And there was a brand new album at the time, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and we listened to that thing like 100 times on the way up there and back. So music's playing, and you don't want to interrupt the music and talking or whatever. So we're just sitting there, my best friend and I, and listening to music. And I'm looking out the window at the gorgeous scenery. We came upon a little lake, and there was a little island in the lake, and right in between the island and the shore and the in the lake looked like a chimpanzee walking about, I don't know, waist high in the water to the island. And we rode by, and I thought, oh, it must be some kind of a what do you call them? Like a little, a place where they keep animals, some kind of a
zoo.
I thought that, not a real zoo when they let them just run wild, one of those kind of places.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what it must be. And I didn't say a word. I didn't want to interrupt the music, I never told him about it. And then just this year, I thought, you don't know how far down that little lake was or how big that ape was. I mean, what kind of ape walks around in the water? So I figured that was an actual sighting right there. It was in Northern California, so it was about midway in California. And it's Bigfoot country, so it had to have been. I'm thinking, what else would it have been? But it really have been a chimpanzee, So that was in 1969. So my experiences in my lifetime, it's like he's following me around. I don't know, man. I'm not, I didn't know anything about Bigfoot at that point,
right?
At all in those experiences. So in 1983, I'm visiting friends up in Washington State. Everybody knows about that place. Well, California too, of course. The Washington State, you see a lot more sightings. My friend in Arlington, Washington, is pretty much pretty rural, and I mean there's houses and blocks of houses, but they're not that many. There's a lot of, all over Washington, there's lots of little forests or mini forests or whatever. And we were up on this hill, and it had this beautiful view, but it's being ruined by all these bushes up front. The bushes are standing up in the way. So I thought, I'm going to go down there and cut those bushes down. So we get this beautiful view of the valley. So I'm out there, and I'm sawing away. I go, oh my God. The garbage, so I smelled garbage. Right. I never heard about this. I had no knowledge of Bigfoot smelling at all at this point. Although my friend living there was a Bigfoot fanatic. He told me all about it. He had all these books to read and everything. I was pouring through and reading it, But nothing in there that I saw. Huh?
But it wasn't forefront in your mind. I mean, it wasn't like.
No, I had no knowledge.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I'm down there cutting the bushes to get that view, He had a big window in his part of his house that had been perfect, and it was when I got done. And so I cut these bushes down, and I keep smelling this terrible rotting garbage. And I thought, who would dump their garbage around here? And nobody would. We're out in the middle of nowhere. And it sloped down pretty sharp, so I had to watch my step or I'd go sliding down there, So there could have been experience right there. I'm just keeping it in mind, That's nothing positive. But it just seems like Bigfoot evidence to me.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I thought, well, I've visited my friend long enough. I'm going to see if I can find a place to live out here. And then a lady at church who happened to be very wealthy owned a place on the island, city of Port Orchard, up in some of those many islands up there. It looks like Canada, where of course it's almost Canada. This island, she owned this huge estate. I mean, she had us an estate where the backyard went down to the ocean, and they used to dig their own clams and everything for generations. She said, "Oh, come over to my place and stay in the trailer. It's about 100 yards from the house, and there's a forest, right? A mini forest on an island in Canada, a giant forest, but big enough for us to hide in along the path." Well, I'm eating dinner in there, and boy, I'm telling you, I had a good time. She was all these gourmet meals and welcome to stay and all this stuff. I tried to make myself useful. But anyway, I get done with dinner one night, and I excuse myself, say good night. I'm walking down the 100-yard path, and about, 50 feet on my way, I smelled this terrible smell. It wasn't garbage. It wasn't skunk-like. It wasn't like a putrid odor. It just smelled like a horse that had been running for a mile, like a big animal that had BO, you know. And I turned around. The only thing in the air that could possibly be, I looked at the smoke coming out of the chimney, and I thought, well, what kind of wood you got in? You got some kind of wood with some kind of stink to it, you know. And I thought it had to be the fireplace.
Yeah.
So I turned around. It was overwhelming. And I started walking to get away from it. And I got down at the 100 yards down to my trailer, and all of a sudden I heard these feet, these footfalls. You know, it was through the needles. And she had a lot of grandkids around there, and I knew that they're known for their pranks and their playing around and stuff. So I waved it off, you know, and I didn't stop. Got silent. No kids yelling, no, you know, like kids jumping out, go boo or anything, you know. And I went over to my trailer, put the key in the lock, went inside. 10 minutes later, there was a big slam on the side of side of the trailer. A real classic move, you know. This wasn't even in the email I sent you. This is all led up to it. And we haven't even gotten to the good part yet, folks. But so I thought, thinking back, there was a big picture window with no curtains. When I was sleeping, he probably was looking in at me. I'm glad I didn't know. That was it. That was the whole experience on that one. So I'm getting little tidbits of strange and peculiar things that seem to add up to evidence, you know.
Right.
It's not conclusive. But it's typical. You know, a typical behavior and experience. Yeah, now you really fast forward it up to 2017. I had a little job until the pandemic, actually, the last 4 years, driving a van and taking special needs kids to school and back, or their little play area and back. You know, they would go inside and have fun. Give the parents a break, probably, and it keeps them entertained so that when they get home, they're a lot better mood, you know. But I take these kids, pick them up, and take them to their place, and then I'd have a split shift, you know, like any kind of school bus driver. And then I'd go back, pick them up, take them home. So I'm out there at a place called Ojai, California. Now, this city is right on the edge of a gigantic forest. It's been known to have Bigfoot activity. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anything. I was out there on a road called Creek Road. I thought, ooh, this is spooky, man. This is still dark outside. I'm the only car on the road. There's all these trees and stuff. I just thought, you know, this looks like an area that you could be where Bigfoot would live. You know, here I am thinking about it. You know, I told you earlier about you read a book about UFOs and suddenly there's an ET in your closet. You're getting jumpy and spooky. Yeah. I feel a little spooky. And, you know, you think, well, this is unreasonable and all that. I'm telling you, a real Bigfoot experience, folks. You're riding in the car with me. Is us right now talking about it, thinking about it, then it happens. It's just as real as your next thought. Because out of the blue, a deer comes running toward me out of the woods to be with me, to run alongside me. All these antlers and everything. I'm not a hunter, so I don't know the creature that well. I mean, I just seen them in books and in movies, you know. And it was a deer with a bunch of antlers and, you know, running alongside me as if being with me was a whole lot safer than being with whatever was chasing it. It was obvious that it was getting away from something. And knowing that whatever was chasing it wouldn't come out because I was there. It was running alongside me for protection, obviously. And so I took my foot off the gas. Wasn't this beautiful? Because I'm a city kid, a big kid, I guess you'd say. I'm impressed when I see wildlife. I mean, it's like maybe everybody is. I guess maybe it is. Maybe it is universal. I don't get a chance to see deer very often, you know, and I thought this is cool, man. This is really cool. I took my foot off the gas and I started speeding up. How could I speed up with my foot off the gas? It wasn't a hill, but I did. And so the deer kind of parted company when it went the other way. And I just proceeded on my way down the road. And I thought, well, that was kind of weird. You know, I'm just driving along. The next thing you see, about a half a mile down the road, right at the creek where there aren't any houses at all, no houses at all. There's these really creepy and spooky. I mean, this is right out of a movie. It's just like too Hollywood, you know. Believe me, folks, I'm a very honest person. This is what really happened. There's these oak trees covering the mountainside, and it's really steep. I mean, if you were to try and go up the mountainside, you would need a rope with a hook on it, and you'd have to throw the rope up to the tree and pull yourself, and then onto the next tree. You know, that's how you'd have to climb it. It's real steep with these oak trees. In the middle, there's a creek, of course. I mean, to the left side of me, where I was going, there was a creek, and there's bamboo, which I guess is indigenous around here. I don't know, maybe somebody planted it. It was about 30 feet high, a whole bunch of it. So I'm driving through. This is like a little fairy tale it's a beautiful spot, but it's also spooky in the dark. Only car on the 2-lane road. And I see this guy in the middle of nowhere in the dark, standing on the left side of the road, looking at me. And being a professional driver, I always take every possibility to be courteous and considerate. So I stopped on a dime and let him cross in front of me. He's smiling at me. And, you know, it's dark, and I could just see him out of the headlights a little bit. Instantly. This is a big van. I don't know if you've seen these big vans, but it's the biggest one they make. You know, big windshield was filled with fur. Three quarters of the way across from the driver's side to the other side was fur. It looked like hair, fur, or something. And then the headlights, you know, it's kind of orangish brown according to how the light hit it in front of me. I noticed that I couldn't see anything anymore out of my driver's door. Nothing at all. It was just black. And I could see a little bit before. And I never did see the guy cross in front of me. Not at all. And I waited 10 seconds just to make sure I wouldn't hit him trying to get in front of me. I didn't know what was going on. And my attitude, I'm probably good in emergencies because my attitude is like, okay. Okay. But the idea of anticipation makes me scared. But when it happens, I'm not scared. I don't know how that works. I guess that's a good thing to have in an emergency. But the next thing I knew, you've heard of the blur when Bigfoot moves, the blur.
Yeah.
There was a brown blur. I mean, just phew. And that mountainside I mentioned before with the oak trees, how hard it would be for a person to get up it with a rope and a hook and pulling yourself up tree by tree. That's how you'd have to do it. It went up there like the wind. So It had to have been a Bigfoot. And I thought, well, did I imagine this? But no, there was a branch that was shaking and a bird fell out of its roost. So I didn't imagine it because I saw the bird fall. I think it was an owl. I don't know. The bird was just looking at me like, what the heck? You know, it was sleeping. And it was gone as soon as in a moment. And I could see it again through my driver door, and I could see in front of me. But I never saw that guy that wanted to cross. So I've had, you know, the best learning of your experiences is to think it over and think it over. That's what detectives do. They go over, let's go over it one more time, you know. So I thought about this a lot. And the best idea I can come up with is either I witnessed a Bigfoot abduction of a human being. Because what it really was, the reason why I couldn't see out the driver door and I saw all that fur in front of me, or hair or whatever, is because they were stopping me. One got in front of me, a Bigfoot, and a Bigfoot got to the door, so I couldn't get out. So it was either an abduction or they were helping their young one away from me because I'd stopped near it and that possibly would be danger for it. You know, I'm thinking that it was a Bigfoot crossing guards, and I'm being very serious. What else would you think? What would you think, my listeners, if you had this happen? You know, I never saw the guy again that was standing there. It may have been a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happened. And so let's see if I'm going through my notes to make sure I get it all. Okay. So that happened. I get back to base after I dropped the kids off at school and went home. I go back to work about 3 hours later. And I come up to my vehicle, and you know, we are very strict about keeping our vehicle very clean. You know, we don't even have a little candy bar wrapper in the front seat or nothing. You know, we keep it really clean because the boss will come around and take pictures and get us in trouble. You know.
Yeah.
And I come up, and there's this big muddy spot. Once in a while, they'll use your vehicle while you're at lunch, while you're on your break. And I thought, what the heck? 15-inch muddy spot on the back of the vehicle, and it looked kind of like somebody had backed into a muddy bush or something. Who's been driving my vehicle and got it dirty? You know, and I thought, well, now I got to clean it off. I'll get in trouble. So I washed it off because I'm thinking now that I understand why I was accelerating when I took my foot off the gas, I'd being pushed by a Bigfoot to get the heck out of the way. They were hunting. I think I intruded upon their hunt. There's a lot of deer in there, you know. That's what they live on. It was about 15 inches, and it did look quite a bit like finger painting. You know, it looked like it could have had like 5 extensions. I think it was a muddy handprint of a Bigfoot, and I washed it off. Oh my gosh, I could have taken a good picture, you know, but I had to keep my vehicle clean. You know, I'll get in trouble, you know. And then I thought later, oh my gosh, that's looking pretty much like what happened. As I look back and put it all together, you have to piece it together, you know. So I went through there every day, of course, knowing what is going on. And I'm going through Bigfoot country here, you know, every morning, a little spooky. You know, the anticipation is more spooky than the actual experience.
Oh yeah.
Of course, if he had run along and stuck his face in my window, I would have screamed. You know, yeah. I mean, you get a little spook just see the face. You know, I mean, oh, but I didn't. All I saw, I couldn't even see the shoulder through the front. And I think it was 6.5. My eyeballs, from what I measured later, were 6.5 feet off the ground. And when I looked through the windshield, I didn't see a shoulder. All I could see was midsection. He's a big one.
I remember reading that in your story, and I was like, I'm not sure what he's trying to say here. You're just saying it was so big, it just covered the whole view, it covered all your field of vision.
Yeah, I'd have to put my head on the dashboard and look up, see the rest of it. You know, there's no animal that could have done what I've witnessed.
Right.
No other animal on earth. And I was fully awake. I'm a professional driver, you know. Drink my coffee, you know. Let's see if I can remember where I left off here. I was, So I'm going through the Bigfoot country there every morning. I thought, well, this is cool. And part of me thought this is pretty cool because I got to do it every day, you know, every morning cruising through Bigfoot, you know. And so I thought it'd be cool to roll my window down right about the point where they were in front of me. And I rolled my window down and just a little whistle, you know. And I did that for about a week. Every day I went by and I just, you know, I don't know why I did. I was just kind of like communicating. You know, it was pretty cool thinking they could hear me, you know. And one morning, about a week later, it's a turn. You have to make a turn to get to that point. When I got around the turn, there was a tree in the road at that exact point where I whistled. It was about 8 inches in diameter and it was broken. And that my hair on the back of my head stood up pretty bad. That was scary. And I thought, oh my gosh, can I get by? Is this kind of like, you know, a stagecoach robbery here? You know, I've never heard of them pulling people out of their vehicles, but it could have been a statement. I think most definitely was a statement to me. Shut up, leave me alone. In the daylight on my break, I went over there and looked, and it had been broken off from a tree about 40 feet inward. There was no drag marks. It had to have been tossed. And so there you are on that one. I never whistled again. My first pickup in the morning, this is what happened next. My first pickup in the morning was directly on the other side of the hill from the creek, where just about exactly where I had stopped and they were. When I pulled into his driveway, and he's got, you know, a little forest in his backyard that goes around to the creek. And there was big wood knocking. I mean, it sounds kind of like when a Bigfoot hits a tree with a stick or with a piece of wood, it seems like it goes to the core of that tree. I mean, it just rings. There's no human being has that kind of power, you know. You could take probably the biggest slugger in, you know, any league of the baseball, and I don't think they could hit it that hard. But it just rings. It just rings like it was done with a machine. Boom, 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 you know. And there's nobody building anything around there. So he rang it about 10 times. He hit the wood. Now, here's the part that's really interesting. It gets more and more interesting for me, and it probably will for you and our listeners. All over this lady's yard were stacked rocks, different sizes, probably 50 piles of rocks all over her yard. They're like maybe 8 high, you know, and they're balanced, perfectly balanced. And I asked her, what's with all the rock piles? And she said, oh, I don't want you to think I'm on drugs or anything, but I like to have fun once in a while. And I didn't believe a word of it. She tried to say she did it. She went out on her yard on her hands and knees and stacked rocks. Do you believe that? So I'm thinking she knew them. The Bigfoot slamming the tree with a piece of wood told me to beware. They know what I look like. They knew who I was.
Yeah.
They know who I am. How do you say it? So he recognized me and hit the tree. I'm sure he doesn't do that for everybody that pulls in her driveway. So he's probably friends with that lady. I went back over there and she moved. I wanted to talk to her after I figured it out. Because it took me a while. I'm a detective. Sometimes takes me too long to figure things out.
Yeah.
But they put those stacks. I think she had a relationship with him and she was feeding it or something. And who knows? You hear these stories. And the Bigfoot was telling me, you better watch yourself. So I picked up the kid and took him back, and that was it. But I didn't believe her. I thought, no, how did all those stacked rocks get all over her yard? Must have been 50 piles everywhere. You almost had to step around them very carefully. So that's the most unusual yard decoration I've ever seen. Pretty interesting. So let's see what the rest of the story is here. I don't want to leave anything out.
Well, wait, put your finger there. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
And you may have said this and I may have missed it, but how far was this first kid's house from where that incident happened with the deer?
Oh, the deer, well, that would be further on, about half a mile down there, and probably, how far would it be over that hill? That hill's not very far, not very.
I mean, where you saw this Bigfoot scale this, steep embankment through the trees and stuff, and that's within.
Oh, that was the abduction thing, yeah. That's about half a mile away from where the deer came out.
Okay, so you're basically
running behind me.
You're basically in the same area.
It was directly over the hill, practically.
Okay,
to where this kid was.
That's what I was getting at.
It's kind of amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
I put that together. I'm thinking, and it just kind of puts together. You ever work a jigsaw puzzle, and it all goes, okay, I can see the picture now, when you get them put together.
Yeah.
This lady, okay, if she's not going to talk, that's where it ended. She didn't tell me the truth, I don't think. But it sure would have been a great interview. I was going to say, come on, I figured it out, but she moved. Oh, I wish she still lived there. I would have had a good talk. But anyway, maybe I could talk to her neighbors. Maybe they knew it, And they could say, well, I saw it, but I didn't want to tell anybody. I don't know. So the first thing I did was on my days off, I'd go into town, and I'm looking for people to find out. Once in a while, something weird would happen. Like I'm driving through there, and it's dark. And there's a guy's truck sitting roughly in the same area where they stopped, where they went up the hill. And his truck is running, his door is open, the lights are on, and he's gone. He's not there. Now, who stops to take a leak, leaves the truck running, and the door open with the light on?
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe he saw something and he went down. What the heck was that? I don't know. That's just circumstantial. That's just like speculation. But I went into town and I found this homeless guy. I hear somebody to talk to. Hey, do you know anything about Bigfoot in the creek area? And he goes, oh yeah, there's a family of 3 living down there. Well, I saw 3. So I'm thinking, okay, we talked and he told me that they'd sleep in that creek, and they do. I've seen tents in there. I saw one tent. You don't know. And he told me that his friend had slept under the bridge, and they found his shredded body the next day. He said that the sheriff said it was either a bear or a mountain lion, and he said it was too badly damaged to be that. Well, of course, bears when they're eating you for dinner won't leave much. But he said that it looked too shredded. I think, okay, so we might have a very territorial Bigfoot in here. He says he probably doesn't go anywhere near that when he has to sleep at night. But so I did some research online, and in 1946 there was a sighting. A lady saw a Bigfoot in her cornfield, just a big hairy man kind of character in her cornfield, and her husband just got back from work in time to see it too. That was in 1946, so they do frequent that area. Of course, there is a big forest right on the edge there. And let's see, there's another one right at the turnoff from Highway 33 to Creek Road. Somebody, I didn't get the year on this one. I don't think they gave it. Someone saw a Bigfoot down below because it drops off where the creek area is down at that point. And he saw a Bigfoot there. I didn't get the year on that. Now, it gets pretty interesting. All this seems pretty interesting to me. But there was a lady who is an actor, as they call them now. They don't call them actresses anymore. She acted in the playhouse in town, and she used Creek Road at night on Saturday nights after the show. One of those nights, this is cool because she doesn't know what happened. She doesn't make any claims, so that makes it really, really good evidence. She was driving along this 2-lane road in this pitch black area with almost no other cars on it, and suddenly got shoved into the next lane. She stopped, looked, there was nothing there. She went on to the gas station in the light so she could safely look at the car and see if there's any damage, and there wasn't any damage. So that would tell you, if she got shoved in the next lane, a Bigfoot would have had to put his hands directly on the car and pushed. No dents, no scratches. Probably scared him. I'm thinking it's not that he was that territorial, because too many cars go through there in a 24-hour period, But I'm thinking maybe she came upon him right when he was walking along, and he pushed her out of the way because, like it scared him or something. That's my speculation. But she says she has no idea what happened. So if someone mentioned Bigfoot, it'd probably be the first time she ever heard it. So that's really good evidence.
You've really dug in on this. You've really done your research. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I think that covers it. That's everything that happened so far. Oh, there is one other thing. After the tree in the road, as I keep driving through there, one day, for just a flash of a second, just for a moment, out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw two bright red eyeballs too high off the ground. I thought, did I really see that? I don't know. I thought I did. That's it. That's 100% of my story. If there's any more, I'll let you know. I'm still thinking about it. These things happen, and you go, what was that? What happened? You scratch your head. You sit down. You think about it. You put it all together. You got to be a detective.
Yeah.
Because, Bigfoot doesn't come out and say, hi, here I am, But usually, except for when he got in front of me, I guess that was pretty bold. They would only get that bold. Yeah. I'm thinking they would only get that bold if it was their young.
Well, those are great stories, and what impresses me is how well you've dug in on this. And it starts when you're 7 years old. And when is the last experience that you can identify? How old did you say you are? 60?
I'm 67.
67. So when was the last experience? How long has it been?
Well, this was about 3 years ago now. I went, I left something out. I did leave something out. See, there's so much you have to pull in. It's like being a detective, I went down on Christmas morning. I don't know how I could have left this out. I went down on Christmas morning right after it happened. This happened in October. The following Christmas, I went down to look for footprints, and the ground had too much rock on it and stuff. There was no way to get any footprints. But as soon as I got out of the car, right up in the impossible to get up to oak trees on the hillside, there was wood knocking, really super loud. And it happened 3 times. And I thought, well, it's probably a sentinel, Bigfoot. There's someone right near where I am. I want to stay alive. So I got in my car and went home. That's how that went. But there's wood knocking there. I told people from coast to coast who are Bigfoot organizations about this. If you want to find out where Bigfoot's at, I'll tell you, get over there, and nobody did. I mean, I've been trying to get somebody over there because he practically greets you when you get there, and at least he does me. If someone wanted to have an expedition of some kind, you could maybe encircle it, and somebody will get him running through the circle of people, get it on camera.
You don't think it's just one? You're pretty sure it's a clan, or what do they call them, a troop?
Yeah, at least 3.
Yeah,
and one young one, and who knows how long they live.
Well, California, I mean, you all have, you've been able to preserve a lot of your natural forests out there, and so there's still a ton of habitat, in that area, especially up in the Northwest. So that is also fascinating, and I'm just flabbergasted at how much interest, how you became fascinated with it and started digging for encounters in that area. Maybe there are some people in that neighborhood where the rock piles were in the lady's yard, Yeah. Are you brave enough to go over there and ask those people, or?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I would be.
I think they might possibly have seen it, going to her house, or leaving.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
So you actually think she had some kind of relationship? It was coming to her house, and she was telling you she piled up those rock piles just to cover the story?
I think she wasn't telling the truth. I mean, why would she do that? It looks to me like little gift offerings. Like, isn't this pretty? It's sort of affection, to me, from what I could see. Why would a Bigfoot do that? But to show affection or something. It's not looking for things under rocks to eat. It's just making pretty little piles.
Yeah.
And they were very, very balanced, very intelligently done, all over the whole yard.
All the way back to that footprint beside your tent. And did you say that was in the San Bernardino National Forest?
Yes, It's up by Big Bear. Big Bear.
Okay, I've actually been to Big Bear. And what's the King Canyon? Is that one of the parks up there? Is that right?
Oh, man. It's so near me, but it's so funny. I don't know all the names of the places, and,
I think it's something Canyon, maybe King Canyon, but Big Bear. My son, when he was out there, him and his buddies would go up there and spend weekends just, primitive camping in those areas. Matter of fact, I've still got a walking stick that he cut for me 12, 15 years ago from, he cut down a little, I don't know what kind of pine trees there are. We don't have anything like that here, but those small pine saplings, he cut one down and made me a walking stick out of the trunk, and it is so nice. I love it. But,
imported.
Yeah, imported from California. When you cross the state line into Nevada or another state, California is like crossing into another country. I mean, your state border, egress points are so, they want to know, do you have any fruit? Do you have any this? Or like,
that.
Why are you asking that? And I'm like, well, yeah, we got a banana back here. Or, I didn't know how that. Yeah. I mean, you cross any state line down here where we live, and you don't even know it. I mean, it's unless your GPS goes off. But anyway, all that to say, I remember being in California and being in Sequoia National Forest, and what I remember the most is how clean and crisp the air felt. It was so nice. I mean, up in those higher elevations, I know LA is kind of, smoggy, but you get up into the higher elevations where the trees are and stuff, it is absolutely beautiful. I mean, beautiful.
Oh, it is. When they stop setting fires, they caught somebody setting a fire, and you wonder, are there people doing that, And then now they're starting to say that it looks orchestrated. So, oh boy, how do we stop this?
Wow.
Those trees are 1,000 years old, some of them,
Yeah, they say some of them were seedlings during Christ's lifetime. Now, isn't that amazing?
Oh, man.
That's unbelievable. Listen, thanks so much for coming on. It's I'm really interested in these. I tell you what impresses me, and I've said this before in this interview, but how people have these experiences. And look, if they're not real, I kind of hate to say this, but sometimes people make stuff up. I mean, they just make stuff up, and it brings them a little attention, and with their friends or peers or whatever. But when somebody has an experience and it pretty much captivates their imagination and their efforts for years, like it has with you, it adds a lot of weight to the story. It impresses me. I've never had an encounter, and I would imagine if I did, I would start digging, trying to find out who else has seen something like this around here. Of course, there's a few people that have, and I've run into them here locally, but there's not. It's very rare. It's very rare I run into anybody who. Matter of fact, if you mention Bigfoot around here, you get laughed at. And of course, I'm the kind of person who I'll take any attention, even if it's a little, people making fun of me or whatever. So, I don't know. I guess I'm a goofball, but yeah, that is so fascinating. And listen, TC, I want to thank you for doing this. Do you have any opinions on what these things are, where they come from, anything on the origin, or do you think they're biological creatures? Do you think there's some kind of other entity from another dimension? I just did an interview the other day. I haven't uploaded it yet, from a guy who is pretty keen on this woo-woo effect. And it was a fascinating talk with him. And he made a lot of sense. And there's a lot of guys. Who's the guy? Ron Moorhead. He makes a very compelling argument about it being a paranormal or supernatural or even a otherworldly creature. But I'm curious, TC, what you think through all your studies and your experiences. Or do you have an opinion?
Well, my opinion so far is that it's just another animal. It's very intelligent. It seems like the government, whenever anything's unusual, they want to hide it from us. I heard a story about a sentinel guard, or whatever you call them, in the service in San Bernardino. Where is it? Somewhere near here, north of Los Angeles. There's an army base or something. And they say Bigfoot came up to him and took his rifle out of his hands and bent it into a pretzel. And they found him. He was terrified. The government doesn't want us to know about it. I think that it's an animal. I think that it's territorial. It could be anything. I think I heard on one of your programs that there can be just like anybody, like people. That you get all kinds. Some of them are mean. Some of them, I don't know. Some of them are probably playful. I think it's real. And since the government doesn't want us to know about it, I think it's just because they're going to say, well, why don't you take better care of us and protect us in our national parks and whatever, and then they'd be in trouble and they wouldn't be able to. They feel kind of powerless against it, I think. It's not that it's something supernatural. I think it's just like, what are we going to tell the people? Because now they can't go camping. Now that they know it's there, then, and they're going to look at us and say, why aren't you doing something? And they can't. What can you do?
Yeah.
I think that's the predicament the government's in. I think so it doesn't make it supernatural or a UFO or ETs or something like that. It's just a problem that they'd rather everybody didn't know about. I think that there's enough evidence to show that Bigfoot is a living and breathing entity who has feelings and all the same, pretty much the same emotions we have. He acts too much like a person, like a typical human being in a lot of ways to be anything way, way, way out there. I look at my cat. My house cat, and I can read her face. I can see what she's thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
All creatures tend to have the same sort of feelings and emotions and purposes. Well, it's just to a certain level.
Right.
Got to eat. You got to have fun. So I'm sold on it just being another physical being like ourselves. I'm a Christian. I believe in having a soul, and I don't know. Really, I guess I better think about that one too. Whether Bigfoot has a soul. If it could be part human, wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
What if Bigfoot's a human relative? It could be,
Well, everything's up in the air, and I've noticed lately in my comment section that people are, and it's usually after an interview like this, like you've said, you think it's a biological creature. Now you've opened the possibility that they could be, part human. I did hear you say those words, and I know you don't know, and none of us know, but I'm getting a lot of feedback in the comment section. People getting really adamant, and they almost seem aggravated when someone says, no, they're just an animal, like a bear or a dog or an ape. And people get upset at that, and they're like, well, they're people. Well, if they're people, they have to have souls. You raised that question. And that's hard to swallow for a lot of people. Humans, we're all very unique, obviously, but we all look alike. You know when it's a human or an animal. And so if you just follow the logic trail, most people will go to the idea that this is a biological animal and it's acting on instincts, and it's become very, very adept in the forest, and it can hide itself. Now, I'll say if they're real, and I don't doubt they're real, they're the most intelligent creature below us. And the reason I say below, a lot of people say, well, they're smarter than us because we can't find them. They don't have cars and computers, and they don't have the communication. So they're not smarter than us, So, but they may be in certain aspects that, they may be, and they may be on a totally different level than we are. And I guess there could be a case made that, they've stayed so primitive and have been able to stay hidden for so long that just because of that fact, it makes them more wise. Let's say that they may be more wise than we are when we're out here in the rat race doing our thing. But anyway, I'm just rambling.
It's like when you're walking along, and next he circles around and gets behind you.
Yeah, that happens.
That's wisdom.
Happens a lot. I hear that a lot. So, that's awesome. Thanks for those final thoughts. I think they're very enlightening, and I want to thank you and tell you what a favor it is to me that you were willing to come on. And I'm sorry it took us so long to connect. I've got about 10 or 12 people who I'm trying to connect with right now, and it just takes time. I'm working a regular job, and to do this, I have to stop what I'm doing. Most people want to do it in the evening, and if I do it in the evening, then I'm taking time away from my family to do this, and I already have a job, anyway, all that to say, it's just it's hard to connect and get times because I know other people have schedules too. So all that said, listen, guys, thanks so much, and thanks to TC for coming on and sharing all of his insights and experiences with us. It was just fabulous, and I really appreciate it. And we're going to wind this up. We're at about 55 minutes. That's close enough to an hour. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.